the Assembly, we have got some recommendations on page 183 and 184, which the Assembly had no comments on and were happy with. We've got no public speakers and no members want to speak. So I'm going to just ask Chris to touch on a few things in this. Chris, I don't know if you've got the agenda pack up in front of you. So there's a lot of good works happening on city access strategy. Page 185 is the first one of us, which is the evidence base, which is in two parts, the NPR Canberra Traffic Survey and the Engagement and Travel Diary conversation coming up. Chris, do you want to just give us a minute or two on these, and when are the results of the NPR going to be published and available to everybody?
Chair, I'm hoping the results of the ANPR are imminent. We were told that we were looking at about a good 5 weeks, working weeks, from the end of the study. Actually, it was longer, 8 weeks, which took us into the beginning of August. So I'm hoping those results are imminently. Just unfortunately, we're not available for this board meeting. However, they will be available for the September board meeting. What we're looking to do, together with the automatic number plate, to make the point, because I know there was some concern about this, all it is a camera that recognises the number plates. It can then contact DVLA and they will tell it what vehicle it is, not whose vehicle. Nobody ever knows whose vehicle, and there was a lot of concern about that. But what it tells us is where it's come from, in terms of once it's come into the cordon, and the cordon was roughly the M11, A14, A11, it tells us where it comes in from, it tells us where it goes to. So that will really help inform the work that we're doing in city access and the demand management, which we have, sorry for the pun, parked for the minute, pending this evidence-led information. In addition to that, as you rightly say, we're doing this travel diary, which is going out to all properties within the Greater Cambridge area, 128,000. This is asking more about not only what they're currently doing, but what they would like to do and what's stopping them from doing what they would like to do in terms of travel. So this will enrich the information about what's currently happening to what people would like to see if they had the opportunity. And then with all of that is this, and it's sort of being badged at the moment as the big conversation, for want of a better word, but we say in the autumn, we mean late September, October, we will be having a number of consultation exercises, not only in Cambridge but within South Cambridgeshire as well, to allow people to come forward and explain their issues, their frustrations. All of that will then be added to all the other information we've got. And that, we talked earlier about the paramedics model and that being more finer detailed. This will be really fine detailed information. I mean, we will also take into account surveys that we do on cyclists and any pedestrian surveys, so we will have a full picture of what currently happens and then hopefully what will happen in the future, what people would wish to see happen, and more importantly, what are the issues that people see.
And the ANPR study, will it be accessible to laymen? Will it be lots of computer data, or will it be sort of easily understandable graphs and conclusions, and will it be published separately? We have to wait for a board meeting. You'll just put out the press release and put it on the website with you when it's ready.
As soon as it's ready, I mean, what we will be able to do is we'll be able to analyse all sorts of things, like, for example, how many vehicles come in from the west of Cambridge to, say, access the CBC site, or the north, or the south, or the east. So you can actually run numerous studies on it to find out, or surveys on it to find out exactly what is happening. And yes, that information will be in graphical, easily understood information. However, what we've also been doing, and I can't guarantee this is strictly 100% the case at this moment in time, but the raw data, we will be looking to make the raw data available, because there are people around who like to use apps and things like that that can make really good use of that raw data and actually use it in ways we probably never dreamt of, or it would take us a while to work that one through, that they can just go, well, if we've got that information, we can actually model this and do that. So that we are looking to make that raw data available as well.
That's very good. Do any board members have any questions on that for Chris? Yes, Ian?
Yeah, can I just check, still on the camera, the automatic recognition camera, that will include, I assume, school journeys?
Yes, the survey was actually done just before the schools started to close down, certainly before the university closed down, so it was done at the beginning of June, so yes it does.
Just to follow up, I think that's quite important because when you look at half terms and when the children are on holiday, there's obviously considerably less traffic on the road. Will that, when we get that report, will that actually be separated out of what I call business, leisure and schools, or will it all get lumped in together? I'm trying to actually home in a little bit on schools and the transport of children to school.
The ANPR survey can't do that because all that does is register the cars at this point and it goes to that point. It doesn't register what the journey is about. You might be able to guess that if it goes to the CBC site, that's business. If it ends up, say, in the centre, well, that could be leisure, shopping, that sort of thing. However, the travel diary, that will be the thing that gives us the richness. That will identify why people are wanting to travel, where they go. Do they actually come into Cambridge to shop for leisure, or do they go elsewhere in another direction?
Thank you. Phil.
Just a quick follow-up point from Ian's, but first I'd just like to say, just because the students aren't there doesn't mean the university's closed down. Just at the top of page 185, paragraph 11, and this is again to follow from Ian's point, reducing traffic flows within the city by between 10 and 15%. What's the baseline and when's it going to be measured?
Your baseline was actually back to the measurements in 2011. So what we're looking to do is to reduce traffic flows, including any increases over the period, up to 2031 by 10 to 15% on the 2011. So you're absorbing all of the, as we mentioned earlier, 25% increase in traffic growth that we're anticipating. You're absorbing all of that and actually going back to 2011 and reducing it below that by 10 to 15. That is a big reduction. Why the 10 to 15? I have to be honest, that is more about intuitive, in that we normally notice over the summer holidays, particularly a 10 to 15% reduction in traffic. We all know over the summer holidays, a lot of the problems start to disappear. Not always, but a lot of the problems start to disappear. So that's how the actual 10 to 15% is fixed.
Brilliant. Any more evidence-based? Should we move on? Page 186 is workplace parking levy. Where are we on WPL, Chris?
We have given you an update in the report. We've done a lot of work on what Nottingham have done. Nottingham, as you know, are the only authority in the country that went with workplace parking levy. There were two options, workplace parking levy and congestion charging, when the government brought this in. A couple of authorities, so I'll get a plug, Durham being one of them, went for congestion charging, as did Transport for London, but Nottingham went for workplace levy. The report you've got in front of you identifies how Nottingham approached it. They are very clear. Workplace parking levy is not about reducing demand. It does reduce demand over a period, but that is more about businesses taking conscious decisions, not necessarily to move out, but if they are looking to relocate anyway, they take a conscious decision to perhaps move out of the workplace parking levy area. And they have noticed over the years that there has been a slight relocation, which has led to a reduction in traffic flows within Nottingham, comparing with equivalent cities elsewhere, but not significant, and it was never done for that. Workplace parking levy was done for one reason in Nottingham, and that was to raise revenue. That was to raise revenue for its tram network, and they were very clear about that, and that they made that point clearly to the businesses and sold it on that basis. The figure that's quoted for Nottingham, which I think, off the top of my head without looking, is just shy of £400. Either 387 or 487, was based on the annual pass, the cheapest bus fare pass that you could get for a year. And so those are the sort of comparisons we've started to look at. However, we've held fire on doing anything more on the workplace parking levy, as I say, to get this demand, this evidence base, just to identify what the full extent of the issues are. As part of the bigger conversation, one big conversation area will be, which I didn't mention earlier, will be with businesses. And as part of that conversation with businesses, we will be asking them what their thoughts are about workplace parking levy, probably standing back. But we will be asking them what their thoughts are about that, and particularly what their thoughts are about how that revenue, because that's one of the key issues that we've got to do as part of the process, how that revenue should be looked at and spent in the future once you've raised it. As I say, Nottingham were very clear it was about tram network. We could be very clear it could be about things like light rail, AVRT, subsidised parking rides. That could be the sort of thing that you would be looking at. So that's where we're at. We know what the sort of extent of workplace parking levy, we know the timescales. The next stage now is to engage with the businesses as part of this conversation.
Great, because I've got on record saying I'm very keen and interested in workplace parking levy. I understand that it's basically sole aim is to raise money, but that's good, we need money. That would then help take the parking rides free of charge. We might be able to have subsidise the buses in from the parking rides. We want to have a better rural bus network. We could do with the money. That's my contribution. Are there any other contributions the board members want to add? So if you move to page 187, which is the electric and hybrid buses, I think the Assembly talked about this at length and we're very keen. But the real point is that actually there's a very good report on this from page 183 on to page 201. What I think, and we don't need to summarise the report, but it was written very much with, and it says here, thanks to Andy Campbell, Managing Director of Stagecoach East. So this has been done, if I'm right, with that. There's a sort of implicit recommendation on page 199 that the board probably needs to look at on page 199, which is that a quality bus partnership is preferred in this report. And if this report had Stagecoach input, I think that's quite interesting. There's a sort of interesting comment on page 196 about a very successful scheme in York for electric buses. In the beginning, the first group bus company was not keen on it, but they became keen on it. So I think, it sounded to me like solutions can be worked through and that there is a proposed possibility of something that might happen there. So I think my question really on this is what happens next? It's a really good report. The Assembly were obviously very interested in it. How do we go from A to B and what happens next on this?
I think, Chair, what you need next is a report coming back and stick my neck out in September with clear recommendations from this report. We did take the opportunity, we literally got this report hot off the press as these papers were being finalised, so we took the opportunity, warts and all, to put the report on. As you say, it is a good report. The lady who did the report was also the lady that we're working with on workplace parking. You mentioned York, but Nottingham as well have a massive electric bus fleet. What comes in September, I hold my powder dry a little bit, but my feeling at the moment, although there are issues around electric buses, particularly the range and the ability for double-decker electric buses, there's only one manufacturer of those. However, having said that, the government have recently announced, and Cambridge was in the forefront, so with the university, on spending, I think, 290 million on battery technology, electric battery technology. That's the biggest issue in terms of, obviously, in terms of range. They also made the announcement that by, is it 2040, completely out of the blue, we are not going to have combustible engines anymore. They're all going to be electric or whatever. My view is we do look, the halfway house of Paragon is really interesting, but I think if we're really going to move, we really need to move to electric, and let us do some further work on that for you and bring something back. There is an issue, however. Obviously, air quality is a big issue. Electric, no emissions, with the exception your electricity is generated from something, and at least 50% of that is still fossil fuel. However, there is a problem with electricity, the network within Cambridge, and being able to tap into the existing electrical network. They talk about having to reinforce it. But just to give you another thought, we are looking at some of the park and rides as being solar farms. So certainly at one of the park and rides, which I believe is Milton, we are looking at canopies over the areas where the cars are parked, and looking at...
St Ives is getting it's really good.
Yeah, so we're looking at all sorts of options where, when we come up with the park and ride side proposals, we will also be looking at the ability for charging of buses there, electric buses.
And could I imagine some of the clever brains at the university are, you know, not whether they're not working directly on this, but involved in some of this. I mean, this is, I can't believe there's a single person in the whole of Cambridge who would be against electric buses.
Yes, I suspect there are some clever people in engineering and materials science working on exactly this.
Just to add a couple of points, I'd hope that we can really have a tougher look at the clean air zone, because we did approve it in January, and I thought we were pretty unequivocal. There is potential, particularly following what the government's announced today, just to really seek to get Cambridge as one of the lead cities. So earlier I wrote, including on behalf of the board, to then Secretary of State, Andrea Leadsom, asking that that be the case. I don't think I've ever had a reply, but I will be chasing one, particularly as we now have a different person in that role. So, for instance, today's announcements included £255 million fund to help councils tackle emissions from diesel vehicles. Well, we did have previously an application to a government fund for a flywheel technology, which would have meant that all the stagecoaches buses would have been electric working through the city. So I link it also, Chris, to the further short section on air quality, and I will be putting effort into ensuring that we dig into this issue, in addition to what we're doing on electric taxis, and there's concern in this chamber about vehicle idling as well in the centre, because that's a major contributor to the intense pollution that we have around Emmanuel Street, Drummer Street, and a couple of other places. So I'm just registering that we should make more of this, and we should in a way call the government's bluff, because they're making big statements and we want to see what they mean. I am personally surprised that they're going to ban all combustion engines. Not that I don't think it's a good idea, but the major problem is urban air, and it's right that the car industry and the vehicle industry makes a huge leap to different technologies, because it's always been possible. It's been possible for the last 20 years. But I want to see us test out the urban nature of the focus, because we do have an unnecessarily high number of premature deaths in Cambridge and other cities from air pollution.
Yes, sorry, I think I wanted to make a comment which is about air pollution, which is I think you would be coming on to, so I'll cover it I think here. I think it absolutely is vital, bearing in mind I come from a health background, there is very strong evidence about the air quality and the link to premature deaths in lots of cases. I think we do need to press on here, Mr. Chairman.
And fairly soon,
yes.
Godfrey's gone, but the Smart City app will tell everybody how bad the pollution is in real time on their mobile phone, and that will start scaring people. So, the public will become, you'll be able to really see the pollution through your app.
Yeah,
Should we go on to page 187?
Yep.
On-street parking reviews. There's a report on page 203, quite an extensive report. Can we just say this is in progress now, is it?
It is, Chair. At the County Council there was concern about the controlled parking zones, the residence parking zones, the 26 areas that we were looking to move quickly. As you know, the board voted £1 million to pay for the upfront resident costs that the residents have to bear now. There was some concern at the County Council that the displacement could be a problem, and this report is actually trying to demonstrate that whilst there will be displacement, the current spaces within the park and rides, together with future spaces coming on board for park and rides, will cover that. So it is a positive way forward, is this, Chair.
That's great. I'm trying to remind myself, we had a question this morning on Milton Road, which was saying hopefully people won't have to pay for the upfront cost of residence parking, and I want to say no, they won't, because we are. Anything on that? Page 188, traffic signals review. I think this is really interesting, this, isn't it? Paragraph 36. There are 184 individual sets of traffic lights in the city, 102 at pedestrian crossings, 82 at junctions. Of the 82 at junctions, 52 of them we put in the last 10 years. They're springing up all over the place. It seems completely logical, doesn't it? Whether this is a transport work stream or a smart technology work stream, the more of them should change to green and red as according to the traffic flows, and that's what you're trying to achieve.
That's exactly to link them up. One of the systems, which I won't tell you what the acronym stands for because I can't remember it, is Scoot, where the systems actually understand what's going on in the network and is measuring queue lengths and so on all the time, and is adapting as those queue lengths increase or decrease. It also links itself with other signals in the area, so you get this, as we say, the green wave going through. Interestingly, and I have to say, I think it's positive in one way, but it's at the wrong end of the spectrum in another way. The government, in terms of its pollution, air quality, has actually said that authorities in the first instance should look at its signal network to reduce the amount of delays that occur at signal networks and cars idling and so on. Well, a lot of cars now are moving towards the stop-start. But to look at that, and also to look at calming. Councillor Bates mentioned earlier about the premature deaths. The last figures I saw were 50, one a week, from premature deaths that could be attributable to air quality.
The Assembly, we have got some recommendations on page 183 and 184, which the Assembly had no comments on and were happy with. We've got no public speakers and no members want to speak. So I'm going to just ask Chris to touch on a few things in this. Chris, I don't know if you've got the agenda up in front of you. So there's a lot of good works happening on city access strategy. And page 185 is the first one of us, which is the evidence base, which is in two parts, the NPR camera traffic survey and the engagement and travel diary conversation coming up. Chris, do you want to just give us a minute or two on these, and when are the results of the NPR going to be published and available to everybody?
Chair, I'm hoping the results of the ANPR are imminent. We were told that we were looking at about a good 5 weeks, working weeks, from the end of the study. Actually, it was longer, 8 weeks, which took us into the beginning of August. So I'm hoping those results are imminent. Just unfortunately, we're not available for this board meeting. However, they will be available for the September board meeting. What we're looking to do, together with the automatic number plate, to make the point, because I know there was some concern about this, all it is a camera that recognises the number plates. It can then contact DVLA and they will tell it what vehicle it is, not whose vehicle. Nobody ever knows whose vehicle, and there was a lot of concern about that. But what it tells us is where it's come from, in terms of once it's come into the cordon, and the cordon was roughly the M11, A14, A11, it tells us where it comes in from, it tells us where it goes to. So that will really help inform the work that we're doing in city access and the demand management, which we have, sorry for the pun, parked for the minute, pending this evidence-led information. In addition to that, as you rightly say, we're doing this travel diary, which is going out to all properties within the Greater Cambridge area, 128,000. This is asking more about not only what they're currently doing, but what they would like to do and what's stopping them from doing what they would like to do in terms of travel. So this will enrich the information about what's currently happening to what people would like to see if they had the opportunity. And then with all of that is this, and it's sort of being badged at the moment as the big conversation, for want of a better word, but we say in the autumn, we mean late September, October. We will be having a number of consultation exercises not only in Cambridge but within South Cambridgeshire as well, to allow people to come forward and explain their issues, their frustrations. All of that will then be added to all the other information we've got. And that, we talked earlier about the paramedics model and that being more finer detail. This will be really fine detailed information. I mean, we will also take into account surveys that we do on cyclists and any pedestrian surveys, so we will have a full picture of what currently happens and then hopefully what will happen in the future, what people would wish to see happen, and more importantly, what are the issues that people see.
And the AMPR study, will it be accessible to laymen? Will it be lots of computer data, or will it be sort of easily understandable graphs and conclusions? And will it be published separately? We don't have to wait for a board meeting. You'll just put out the press release and push it on the website with you when it's ready.
As soon as it's ready, I mean, what we will be able to do is we'll be able to analyse all sorts of things, like, for example, how many vehicles come in from the west of Cambridge to, say, access the CBC site, or the north, or the south, or the east. So you can actually run numerous studies on it to find out, or surveys on it to find out exactly what is happening. And yes, that information will be in graphical, easily understood information. However, what we've also been doing, and I can't guarantee this is strictly 100% the case at this moment in time, but the raw data, we will be looking to make the raw data available, because there are people around who like to use apps and things like that that can make really good use of that raw data and actually use it in ways we probably never dreamt of, or it would take us a while to work that one through, that they can just go, well, if we've got that information, we can actually model this and do that. So that, we are looking to make that raw data available as well.
That's very good. Do any board members have any questions on that for Chris? Yes, Ian.
Yeah, can I just check, still on the camera, the automatic recognition camera, does that will include, I assume, school journeys?
Yes, the survey was actually done just before the schools started to close down, certainly before the university closed down, so it was done at the beginning of June, so yes it does.
Can I just follow up? I think that's quite important, because when you look at half terms and when the children are on holiday, there's obviously considerably less traffic on the road. Will that, when we get that report, will that actually be separated out of what I call business, leisure and schools, or will it all get lumped in together? I'm trying to actually home in a little bit on schools and the transport of children to school.
The AMPR survey can't do that, because all that does is register the cars at this point and it goes to that point. It doesn't register what the journey is about. You might be able to guess that. If it goes to the CBC site, that's business. If it ends up, say, in the centre, well, that could be leisure, shopping, that sort of thing. However, the travel diary, that will be the thing that gives us the richness. That will identify why people are wanting to travel, where they go. Do they actually come into Cambridge to shop for leisure, or do they go elsewhere in another direction?
Thank you. Phil.
Just a quick follow-up point from Ian's, but first I'd just like to say, just because the students aren't there doesn't mean the university's closed down. Just at the top of page 185, paragraph 11, and this is again to follow from Ian's point, reducing traffic flows in the city by between 10 and 15%. What's the baseline and when's it going to be measured?
Your baseline was actually back to the measurements in 2011. So what we're looking to do is to reduce traffic flows, including any increases over the period, up to 2031 by 10 to 15% on the 2011. So you're absorbing all of the, as we mentioned earlier, 25% increase in traffic growth that we're anticipating. You're absorbing all of that and actually going back to 2011 and reducing it below that by 10 to 15. That is a big reduction. Why the 10 to 15? I have to be honest, that is more about intuitive, in that we normally notice over the summer holidays, particularly a 10 to 15% reduction in traffic. We all know over the summer holidays a lot of the problems start to disappear. Not always, a lot of the problems start to disappear. So that's how the actual 10 to 15% is fixed.
Brilliant. Any more evidence-based? Should we move on? Over page 186 is workplace parking levy. Where are we on WPL, Chris?
We've given you an update in the report. We've done a lot of work on what Nottingham have done. Nottingham, as you know, are the only authority in the country that went with workplace parking levy. There were two options, workplace parking levy and congestion charging, when the government brought this in. A couple of authorities, so I'll get a plug, Durham being one of them, went for congestion charging, as did Transport for London, but Nottingham went for workplace levy. The report you've got in front of you identifies how Nottingham approached it. They are very clear, workplace parking levy is not about reducing demand. It does reduce demand over a period, but that is more about businesses taking conscious decisions, not necessarily to move out, but if they are looking to relocate anyway, they take a conscious decision to perhaps move out of the workplace parking levy area. And they have noticed over the years that there has been a slight relocation, which has led to a reduction in traffic flows within Nottingham, comparing with equivalent cities elsewhere, but not significant, and it was never done for that. Workplace parking levy was done for one reason in Nottingham, and that was to raise revenue. That was to raise revenue for its tram network, and they were very clear about that, and that they made that point clearly to the businesses and sold it on that basis. The figure that's quoted for Nottingham, which I think, off the top of my head without looking, is just shy of £400. Either 387 or 487, was based on the annual pass, the cheapest bus fare pass that you could get for a year. And so those are the sort of comparisons we've started to look at. However, we've held fire on doing anything more on the workplace parking levy, as I say, to get this demand, this evidence base, just to identify what the full extent of the issues are. As part of the bigger conversation, one big conversation area will be, which I didn't mention earlier, will be with businesses. And as part of that conversation with businesses, we will be asking them what their thoughts are about workplace parking levy, probably standing back. But we will be asking them what their thoughts are about that, and particularly what their thoughts are about how that revenue, because that's one of the key issues that we've got to do as part of the process, how that revenue should be looked at and spent in the future once you've raised it. As I say, Nottingham were very clear it was about tram network. We could be very clear it could be about things like light rail, AVRT, subsidised parking rides. That could be the sort of thing that you would be looking at. So that's where we're at. We know what the sort of extent of workplace parking levy, we know the timescales. The next stage now is to engage with the businesses as part of this conversation.
Great, because I've got on record saying I'm very keen and interested in workplace parking levy. I understand that it's basically sole aim is to raise money, but that's good, we need money. That would then help take the park and rides free of charge. We might be able to have subsidise the buses in from the park and rides. We want to have a better rural bus network. We could do with the money. That's my contribution. Are there any other contributions the board members want to add? So if you move to page 187, which is the electric and hybrid buses, I think the Assembly talked about this at length and we're very keen. But the real point is that actually there's a very good report on this from page 183 on to page 201. What I think, and we don't need to summarise the report, but it was written very much with, and it says here, thanks to Andy Campbell, Managing Director of Stagecoach East. So this has been done, if I'm right, with that. There's a sort of implicit recommendation on page 199 that the board probably needs to look at on page 199, which is that a quality bus partnership is preferred in this report. And if this report had Stagecoach input, I think that's quite interesting. There's a sort of interesting comment on page 196 about a very successful scheme in York for electric buses. In the beginning, the first group bus company was not keen on it, but they became keen on it. So I think, it sounded to me like solutions can be worked through and that there is a proposed possibility of something that might happen there. So I think my question really on this is, is what happens next. It's a really good report. The Assembly were obviously very interested in it. How do we go from A to B, and what happens next on this?
I think, Chair, what you need next is a report coming back and stick my neck out in September with clear recommendations from this report. We did take the opportunity, we literally got this report hot off the press as these papers were being finalised, so we took the opportunity, warts and all, to put the report on. As you say, it is a good report. The lady who did the report was also the lady that we're working with on workplace parking. You mentioned York, but Nottingham as well have a massive electric bus fleet. What comes in September, I hold my powder dry a little bit, but my feeling at the moment, although there are issues around electric buses, particularly the range and the ability for double-decker electric buses, there's only one manufacturer of those. However, having said that, the government have recently announced, and Cambridge was in the forefront, so with the university, on spending, I think, 290 million on battery technology, electric battery technology. That's the biggest issue in terms of, obviously, in terms of range. They also made the announcement that by, is it 2040, completely out of the blue, we are not going to have combustible engines anymore. They're all going to be electric or whatever. My view is we do look, the halfway house at Paragon is really interesting, but I think if we're really going to move, we really need to move to electric, and let us do some further work on that for you and bring something back. There is an issue, however. Obviously, air quality is a big issue. Electric, no emissions, with the exception your electricity is generated from something, and at least 50% of that is still fossil fuel. However, there is a problem with electricity, the network within Cambridge, and being able to tap into the existing electrical network. They talk about having to reinforce it. But just to give you another thought, we are looking at some of the park and rides as being solar farms. So certainly at one of the park and rides, which I believe is Milton, we are looking at canopies over the areas where the cars are parked, and looking at...
It's getting, it's really good.
Yeah, so we're looking at all sorts of options where, when we come up with the park and ride side proposals, we will also be looking at the ability for charging of buses there, electric buses.
And could I imagine some of the clever brains at the university are, not whether they're not working directly on this, but involved in some of this. I mean, this is, I can't believe there's a single person on the whole of Cambridge who would be against electric buses.
Yes, I suspect there are some clever people in engineering and materials science working on exactly this.
Just to add a couple of points, I'd hope that we can really have a tougher look at the Clean Air Zone, because we did approve it in January, and I thought we were pretty unequivocal. There is potential, particularly following what the government's announced today, just to really seek to get Cambridge as one of the lead cities. So earlier I wrote, including on behalf of the board, to then Secretary of State, Andrea Leadsom, asking that that be the case. I don't think I've ever had a reply, but I will be chasing one, particularly as we now have a different person in that role. So, for instance, today's announcements included £255 million fund to help councils tackle emissions from diesel vehicles. Well, we did have previously an application to a government fund for a flywheel technology, which would have meant that all the stagecoaches, buses would have been electric working through the city. So I link it also, Chris, to the further short section on air quality, and I will be putting effort into ensuring that we dig into this issue, in addition to what we're doing on electric taxis, and there's concern in this chamber about vehicle idling as well in the centre, because that's a major contributor to the intense pollution that we have around Emmanuel Street, Drummer Street, and a couple of other places. So I'm just registering that we should make more of this, and we should in a way call the government's bluff, because they're making big statements and we want to see what they mean. I am personally surprised that they're going to ban all combustion engines. Not that I don't think it's a good idea, but the major problem is urban air, and it's right that the car industry and the vehicle industry makes a huge leap to different technologies, because it's always been possible. It's been possible for the last 20 years. But I want to see us test out the urban nature of the focus, because we do have an unnecessarily high number of premature deaths in Cambridge and other cities from air pollution.
Yes, sorry, I think I wanted to make a comment which is about air pollution, which is I think you would be coming on to, so I'll cover it I think here. I think it absolutely is vital, bearing in mind I come from a health background, there is very strong evidence about the air quality and the link to premature deaths in lots of cases. I think we do need to press on here, Mr. Chairman.
And fairly soon,
Yes.
Godfrey's gone, but the Smart City app will tell everybody how bad the pollution is in real time on their mobile phone, and that will start scaring people. So, the public will become, you'll be able to really see the pollution through your app.
Yeah,
Should we go on to page 187?
Yep.
On-street parking reviews. There's a report on page 203, quite an extensive report. Can we just say this is in progress now, is it?
It is, Chair. At the County Council there was concern about the controlled parking zones, the residence parking zones, the 26 areas that we were looking to move quickly. As you know, the board voted £1 million to pay for the upfront resident costs that the residents have to bear now. There was some concern at the County Council that the displacement could be a problem, and this report is actually trying to demonstrate that whilst there will be displacement, the current spaces within the park and rides, together with future spaces coming on board for park and rides, will cover that. So it is a positive way forward, is this, Chair?
That's great. I'm trying to remind myself, we had a question this morning on Milton Road, which was saying hopefully people won't have to pay for the upfront cost of residence parking, and I want to say no, they won't, because we are. Anything on that? Page 188, traffic signals review. I think this is really interesting, this, isn't it? Paragraph 36. There are 184 individual sets of traffic lights in the city, 102 at pedestrian crossings, 82 at junctions. Of the 82 at junctions, 52 of them we put in the last 10 years. They're springing up all over the place. It seems completely logical, doesn't it? Whether this is a transport work stream or a smart technology work stream, the more of them should change to green and red as according to the traffic flows, and that's what you're trying to achieve.
That's exactly to link them up. One of the systems, which I won't tell you what the acronym stands for because I can't remember it, is Scoot, where the systems actually understand what's going on in the network and is measuring queue lengths and so on all the time, and is adapting as those queue lengths increase or decrease. It also links itself with other signals in the area, so you get this, as we say, the green wave going through. Interestingly, and I have to say I think it's positive in one way, but it's at the wrong end of the spectrum in another way. The government, in terms of its pollution, air quality, has actually said that authorities in the first instance should look at its signal network to reduce the amount of delays that occur at signal networks and cars idling and so on. Well, a lot of cars now moving towards the stop-start. But to look at that, and also to look at calming. Councillor Bates mentioned earlier about the premature deaths. The last figures I saw were 50, one a week, from premature deaths that could be attributable to air quality. I'm not saying that's necessarily air quality as a result of transport or anything like that. But of course, we also have to recognise that we have some of the safest roads in Europe. And some of that is down to traffic calming, and that's the thing about residents. They wish to see something that's a better environment for them, and some of that is down to traffic calming. But that's the other thing the government has said we should consider. Because of course what happens at traffic calming is vehicles slow down. That's the purpose of traffic calming. Slowing down, then accelerating away, that produces more air quality issues. So they've actually started at that end. I'd actually start at Again, well, what's the cause? It's the engine.
Thank you. So it says here, paragraph 41, the outcome of the work is a comprehensive report, subject to a further report. Very rough date when we're going to see this.
Probably for the first time today, Chairman. I can't give you an answer on that one.
It's not 2017, it's 2018.
I think it will be early 2018. I will again put my head on the block and I will say you will get a report back at the first meeting in 2018.
That might be very early in January. Anyway, Ian.
Right.
It's just a point actually, which is actually 38, Chris. Actually, what it talks about is the traffic signalling network within Cambridge. I just want to make sure there's a lot of traffic lights actually that come into Cambridge, which are in South Camps. Okay, so I want to be confident that it is not just Cambridge we're looking at, it is the traffic lights on the outskirts, please.
It is, yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Nearly at the end. In fact, we're on the final one. No, we're not. Page 189. Rural travel hubs. You know that I'm quite interested in this one, and this is potentially the first one coming forward. This is Papworth Hospital, Cambridge Biomedical Campus relocation update on page 189. The interesting thing I think here is we're always being told as a board that everything the Greater Cambridge Partnership do should be evidence-based. Between page 202 and 232, there seems to be a report from a company called Sistra providing an awful lot of evidence behind this. We're not being asked to take a decision now, but you just want to give us a flavour for this. And I should warn you that I have mentioned this to Councillor Mark Howell, who is the South Cambridgeshire District Councillor for Papworth and Papworth Everard, who is very keen on this.
One of my roles is to act as the link transport officer for county work as well as Greater Cambridge Partnership work with CVC. As you know, Papworth are relocating, they were relocating April next year. It is now being pushed back. Our understanding now is it's going to be September. There are 1,600 people relocating. The bus services through will mean changes. A lot of people will try and drive. If they can't access the site, they will park in the surrounding areas. We've been working, as part of the Sistra report, which I believe the university actually commissioned, being part of the CBC site. We've been working with CBC partners to see what we could do to, in the first instance, straight away, as soon as it relocates, we provide facilities from Papworth Everard straight into the CBC site, and that's the purpose of that report. The report is looking for a registered service, so it will be able to pick other people up, other people from the site, and the partners on the site are Papworth, they are Adam Brooks, they are AstraZeneca, they are Abcam, they are the university. So everybody's been looking at this, and the report identifies that this is feasible, but there is a cost behind it. In terms of the operating cost, that will be more expensive than the actual revenue that's produced. And one of the things the site is asking is, would partners be interested in sharing some of this cost? Because this is not just about Papworth, there are other people that access the site as well from those partners, and obviously people visiting Adam Brooks or Papworth, visitors and patients. They've approached us and asked if the board might be interested in contributing. Our line on this is we're very interested in a rural hub concept. There would be a cost in providing this 200 parking space at Papworth Everard, and that might be something that the board might be interested in. But as you say, that is a decision that will come back to you. At the moment, we are still in discussions with the partners on the CBC side, but we have sort of highlighted a figure that it might be somewhere in the region of 100,000. Maybe over a 3-year period. You're not being asked for that now, just to give you a flavour. Other partners are putting in as well, so that is not the majority by any stretch of the imagination.
But it's exactly the sort of thing that a workplace parking levy could fund, not just there,
Definitely.
but all over the place.
Yes, definitely.
So, Phil, your interest with a small I is obvious because it's just been mentioned that the university partly commissioned this. Do you want to say anything on this one?
No, I mean, I've been monitoring it. We have transport consultants working with the university on it, and I think it's up for consideration probably early next term, if it was term as a proposal.
I think the only thing to add, Mr Chairman, is obviously one of the issues that I'm certainly aware, because I know historically quite a few people from Patworth, is about the issues of staffing, when they actually do relocate, the issues of the staff that perhaps don't want to move. The reason for that is because of the transport. So I think there are other benefits as well to the staff who work on that site, which is about staff retention. And actually, if you like, that actually is very important. I think from recollection, there was a piece of work done which was presented about a year, 18 months ago by Patworth NHS Trust, where their staff came from, where they live, which I think is an important thing. I have to say, I have had conversations with people who work at Patworth currently and other people who are on board about this issue, and fully understand what I call the staffing issues that will relate when they do actually move. It is very important.
Thank you. Lewis, do you want to say anything about this? You're fine. So we'll just two more. Page 190, rural travel hubs. Very keen on this. I think it's underway. It says report is expected mid-November, so I think we've already talked that that's going on the forward plan. And Nine Wells cycle path. Is that one of our 5 city cross-city cycling schemes, or is this another one on top?
No, it's not.
It's another one. So you don't.
Oh yes, sorry, Chair. Can I just perhaps elucidate on that? You reminded me. So as part of the agreement for the, I always get this wrong, 9 Wells development, there is a cycle path that comes off the 1307 and goes into the CDC site. That is actually triggered by a certain number of properties being sold on the site, and then the developer has to provide that. What we are looking to do is to provide that up front, maybe, where we cash flow on behalf of the developer. Now, we're at very early stages of that, but it is something that certainly the CDC site are interested in, because it's a joint cycling, walking, and obviously it's coming off the 1307, the south side of the Adam Brooks side of the CDC site, so closer to Bagram, so there is the logic there of park and cycle. And Bagram is probably one of the more underutilised sites that we've got as park and rides go.
That's very interesting. I understand that, Pamela. I didn't read it close enough. So we're not paying for it. It's being paid for by Section 106, but we heard earlier how Ian's got this wonderful bank account at the city, at the county council. We might pay for it again. So it happens earlier and then get refunded. But I think we'd all be in favour of that.
Hopefully the developer will pay for it eventually.
Eventually, exactly.
Yes.
I found that very useful. I took us quite slowly through that, because I think it gives a flavour of actually how much is going on city access, and how much the Greater Cambridge Partnership is contributing to that. Does any board members have any final comments before I ask us to vote on the resolution? The resolution's on page 183. We had no comments on the resolution from Assembly. Are we all content? Are we ready? Phil, if you had a vote, vote in favour, thank you. So, we are now on governance, page 233. Tanya is going to kindly do that. If I am right, we have one speaker who is Wendy Blythe. We have no elected members want to speak. The Joint Assembly agreed the recommendations with no amendments whatsoever.
That's correct, Chair. They had some specific recommendations for them as a body, which was about agreeing the working groups, which they did. Also, some of the draft principles for their work programme, and agreed that they would have a workshop at the turn of the year in order to establish that work programme. But they're not recommendations in front of you. They agreed with these recommendations.
Great. So we'll take Wendy Blythe and then Tanya Sheridan.
Just checking the mic's working. Thanks. My question refers to agenda items on Milton Road and on the A428 and city centre access projects. So it's a governance question, but it does relate to those projects. You received the following letter to Greater Cambridge Partnership, now signed by 54 community and local business groups. and I quote from it, "Residents and businesses in Cambridge and the surrounding villages are concerned that the city deal is rushing through plans for major development and transport schemes that lack a clear overall vision, are not evidence-based, and have been progressed using a flawed model of top-down consultation. The need to spend the first tranche of funding quickly has meant that so far this has not been a holistic programme to successfully manage rapid growth in a way that's sustainable and not environmentally damaging. This is exemplified in proposals tucked away in the appendix of the city centre access plans for a bus terminal in the Silver Street area, which impacts the backs, a Grade 1 listed area. Page 211 of the report that you've just been looking at, the sister report. Do you see it? We understand the DCP are working to improve consultation and engagement for future schemes, and I really do appreciate all the efforts that are being made. We do understand that. But my question today relates to concerns about the current schemes and the delivery of a long-term vision for our region that doesn't mean trashing Cambridge, and that's about health, well-being, community and placemaking, as well as economic success. Will the board act on this letter? And in particular, I'd like Professor Phil Almedinga to comment, because this report is a university commissioned report.
So,
the sister report.
yeah. So, Tanya, I think we'll just take this letter and then we'll come back to you. I've got a comment I'm going to make, but Chris, do you want to talk about this page 211 point?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Notwithstanding what people may feel in terms of where consultants are directed to come up with certain solutions and so on, we do actually give our consultants a full remit to look at everything. This wasn't our consultancy, it was undertaken on behalf of all partners and ourselves by the university. So in that sense, it's not really, they just managed it. It's not the university's paper either. What Sister have picked up on is a review of all the bus services within the central Cambridge area, in the city itself, and the work that was done there, which also acknowledged the problem that we got with the Drummer bus station, and certain other sites were identified as potential, no more than that, potential sites for future bus layovers, and that's where Silver Street came from. It was another consultant's report that's been picked up by another consultant. It is no different to the Greenways report that was done by a consultant a few months ago that picked up on the side street down the side of the Senate and just made the arbitrary comment that cycling down there was difficult because of the cobbles down there. And the immediate reaction was, understandably, people want to pick up this straight away, was, well, we don't want to remove those because those are historic. Nobody was suggesting, they were pointing out a straight matter of fact that walking or riding on those cobbles is difficult, but nobody was suggesting that they were being taken out. It was something to be looked at. Silver Street is yet another example of that. We are looking at all the options, and it just so happens that one consultant, which is good, they're picking up every report that's being done, had identified that another consultant had identified that Silver Street might be, and nobody's made any decision whatsoever because that was just a report, might be a local place that we could use in the future. No more than that.
Well, I appreciate the strength of your feelings, Wendy, and the fact that you have... can I finish my answer, please? I didn't interrupt your question, and I'm entitled to make an answer. So I appreciate the strength of your feeling, and I'm very happy to come to speak to Pt4 on a number of these issues, because I believe any suggestion that the city's being trashed is nonsense. I think there is a join. If you look at what we're doing, we've got a scheme in the north, we've got a scheme in the south, we've got a scheme in the west. We have learned, if you look at the Milton Road scheme, I think there's a lot to be proud of that scheme. There's a lot to be proud of the learning of the engagement. There's a lot to be proud in the listening to the community. If you listen to what the chair of the local liaison forum said earlier today, we have made about 8 major changes to that scheme, and rightly so. And we come up with a scheme that is good. I think we have learned from the local liaison forums, and I'm sorry that Helen Bradbury isn't here today any longer, that where local liaison forums looked at the brief, and in the case of the A428 local liaison forum, they have completely ignored some aspects of the brief and effectively looked for any opportunities to deny a proper debate about some of the options. Then we make progress. So life is not perfect. There's been radical improvement to the city deal over the last 2 years, and work isn't just a new name, it's a new approach. And I'm very happy to meet and discuss that. As Chris Tunstall has just said, it was a nonsense to suggest the city deal had any plans to get rid of the cobbles. It is also nonsense to suggest there's any plans for a bus interchange on Silver Street. There is no such scheme. And just because some consultant, and maybe the university's got some idea, but I doubt that Professor Almendinger is any wiser about why this sentence was thrown into a report, which wasn't actually about anything to do with that. Hairs are set running, but we are focusing on delivering major improvements for this city, linking homes and jobs, and these are essential, including for a local plan, which I'm sure you will agree needs to get approved, because otherwise developers really will trash their city.
Just very briefly, if I may, Francis, in response. So firstly, your portrayal more generally of the city deal, the Greater Cambridge Partnership, is the one that I recognise. I've been on this executive board now since February, and I just don't recognise the way in which you describe its approach and its methods of working. But if I can, I will also turn to your points on the consultants' reports. I think Chris has highlighted that the university simply managed this because we have people working for us in transport. I know Silver Street well, because my host department is based on Silver Street. I'm involved in the Old Press Mill Lane master planning exercise. I can say that any proposal for a bus terminus isn't part of the university's plans. It's not the university's land, it's on public land. And I'm not, as Lewis has said, entirely sure why that line was even put in a report that really has nothing to do with that particular part of a suggestion. So I can say that this is the first that I've read about that particular proposal. I simply don't recognise why it's there and where it's going.
If you want to have anything there. I mean, and I'm going to say, Wendy, I mean, if this is your tactic, I think it's a sort of very strange one. You know, and people are now talking about fake news from FECRA. If you're just going to pick out some remark about cobbles down Senate Street, I don't think you checked your facts with me, with the chairman at the time, with anybody here. You just blurted it out into the newspapers. If now, in a clearly open meeting, you know, with a big long pause so the newspapers and the cameras can pick it up, you now try and create a story about Silver Street. Did you put that question to us beforehand? Did you check any facts? No. I mean, if this is the way that FECRA is going to behave, with sort of picking up sensationalist little news stories with sound bites, it's just going to be fake news from FECRA, and we're going to have a difficult relationship. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to ask...
I just say I wouldn't put it quite that way,
but people are now talking about fake news from FECRA. There was a letter in the Cambridge Independent today that we're going to mention.
I just wanted to say, you know, Wendy, we've met a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, and we're really keen, actually on behalf of the board, there is ways in which we can work together, and I'm keen that we do that. But just by way of sort of reflecting what some of the board members have said in terms of, you know, what we are trying to do, there's an article in today's Cambridge Independent with a resident of Milton Road reflecting that they never did have faith in consultation, but actually because of what's been done now in Milton Road, they've had that confidence restored. So I just want, for the balance, to recognise that actually we are going out of our way to try to engage more constructively with residents and reflect their views. And if you were here this morning, I think you would have seen that reflected, but also by that article in the Cambridge Independent. So I really want to keep the dialogue going that we've started. I am committed to make sure we do hear the voices of many stakeholders, Pt4 included, and I commit to what we spoke about earlier in the week to see that through. But as others have said, and as I've said to you privately, we need to do that in a positive and a constructive way as much as we can.
So now we'll go on to governance. Tanya, do you want to kindly talk us through the paper on 233? We've got some recommendations in paragraph 2, which I think, as I said before, the Assembly were happy with. Tanya, over to you.
So the Executive Board and Joint Assembly have been reflecting on various aspects of the programme, as you've alluded to, including the governance through a task and finish group, and that task and finish group, with input from the rest of the Board and Assembly, has developed a package of proposals that aims to preserve the identified strengths of the governance arrangements, particularly bringing in the broader perspectives from business and academic members, as well as councillors representing residents and their communities, to address some identified areas for improvement, and to address some public concerns that have been picked up over the last couple of years about the governance. And this is complemented by work that Rachel was referring to on big conversation and on broadening and deepening stakeholder engagement. The package of proposals is that firstly, all members adopt and allocate themselves portfolios. Recommended allocation is set out in Appendix 1 to the report for board decision. And the idea behind portfolios is that provides clear member leadership of the various aspects of the programme, and also to build on that clarification on roles and responsibilities. Appendix 4 sets out a scheme of delegation to 4 key officers: the interim chief executive, the finance officer, the transport director, and the GCP's solicitor. And that is to make sure that there are very clear conditions and caveats and a framework within which the board can delegate day-to-day matters to those officers. The package also includes establishing working groups chaired by the portfolio holders for each of the 5 proposed portfolios: transport, housing and strategic planning, economy and environment, skills and smart places. And those working groups bring in the Joint Assembly and their expertise much earlier in the policy process, so that they are involved right from the outset. Also, to improve scrutiny and consideration of Joint Assembly recommendations, there are proposed reporting improvements and a longer gap between Assembly and Board meetings, and the Joint Assembly has agreed to a workshop and to some principles to develop a work programme so that they can focus their scrutiny and make sure that it's constantly adding value. And finally, the package includes the review of the arrangements about a year after implementation to see whether they have achieved those objectives.
Thank you for that. Phil, are there any points you want to raise? Yeah, there is. And I think... sorry, yeah.
Sorry. I just remember and recall a discussion identifying that transport was an intensive area of work, and that we would need a second member of the board to contribute to that. So I don't know where that's reflected, Tanya, in the report.
The report in Appendix 1 does set out that, given the strong interest in transport, the transport portfolio holder would have commensurate officer support, but would also consult appropriately with executive board colleagues, particularly those representing Cambridge and South Cambridgeshire on projects in those districts. It may be that the transport portfolio holder would like to invite another board colleague to join the working group as well.
I've already indicated, I think, to Councillor Herbert that I will be very pleased for him to join me to assist me. I'd like to try to keep some of my hair with me, so...
You've got more than me, mate. So I'm very happy to continue to contribute on that.
And I'm content for you to join me, with hair or without.
Thank you. But I think this portfolio working is something that really came out of the 3 weekends and 2 evenings that we and the Assembly had together, masterminded by Rachel earlier in the year. It's a very good way of the Assembly and the Board, who by virtue of these public meetings don't meet in the same room at the same time, actually meeting in the same room at the same time in small groups to talk about things. And I think it's a very good idea, and I think the Assembly was particularly keen on it, and the Board thinks it's a great idea. So it's a good example of us all working together. I think just for form's sake, we should go to page 239, and we should check that Lewis, you're happy to do housing and strategic planning.
Yep.
Ian, with Lewis is held to happy to do transport.
Yes.
I'm happy to do, we've called it Smart Places. It used to be called Smart Cambridge or Smart City, but in recognition of the district, we've changed it to Smart Places. Mark Reeve has indicated that he's interested in skills. Phil, you've got a very interesting sort of blank sheet of paper here, which is quite an opportunity for you. I don't know if you want to say 30 seconds on this.
No, I'm very much looking forward to the opportunity of taking this forward, but I'll be doing that over the summer, I think.
Great, so if I go to the recommendations on page 233, and I'm going to call the vote on those, are we all happy with those? And Phil, if you had a vote?
Yeah.
And at this point, I think we should say thank you to Tanya. Tanya, you've been an amazing help to us all. You're sadly departing from us after 2 hard-working years as our programme director, our first and inaugural programme director, kicking this thing off, this Greater Cambridge City deal and now Greater Cambridge Partnership. I think I speak on behalf of all of the board and your officer colleagues to show our enormous appreciation for all the hard work you've put in, easy times and difficult times. I think we'd all like that minuted, and perhaps we could say thank you to you as well. Great, and I think there is one final agenda item, which is to say we all look forward to seeing each other at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, the 20th of September. And in the meantime, Rachel might publish our January and March dates, which we will try and avoid clashing with the combined authority. Thank you, Archdeacon. I declare the meeting closed.